All right, boys and girls. So now that we learned a lot about percents, a lot about proportions and ratios, we are going to move on to exponents and expressions and equations, which is a really fun standards to cover. So our content objective is I will be able to use exponents to represent numbers. And our language objective is I will be able to explain the meaning of the GCF and the LCM and use them when adding, subtracting, and multiplying fractions. So our essential question is, how do you use an exponent to represent a number? But before we begin, I have some problems here for you to solve. I am going to be checking questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I am going to model the first one for you. So it's 270 times 83. So it's 270 times 83. And so I'm going to multiply 3 times 0. I'm going to multiply 3 times 0, and 3 times 0 is 0. And then I'm going to multiply 3 times 7, and 3 times 7 is 21. So I'm going to put the 1, carry the 2. And then I'm going to multiply 3 times 2. That's 6 plus 2 is 8. So now I'm going to have to put a placeholder here because now I'm going to be multiplying in the tens place. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 7 is 56. So I'm going to put a 6 here and a 5. And then 8 times 2 is 16 plus 5 is 21. And then I'm going to add them up, put a placeholder here, put a placeholder here, and 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. 8 plus 6 is 14. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 0 is 2. And so my answer would be 22,410. I'm going to be checking these first 4. Now go ahead and pause it, solve those first 4, and I need to check them before you can move on. All right, so here's our example, our model. It says Mr. Morales started saving $2 every day for 14 days. How much money will he have after 2 weeks? So I'm going to double it every day. I'm going to double the money. So if I start with $2, the next day I'm going to put 4, the next day after that I'm going to put 8. And so now we have our problem. So it's day 1, I started with $2. So it's 2 times 1. How much did I have saved? I have $2 saved. My expression, because we're learning about exponents, would be 2 to the power of 1. Okay, next one, 2 times 2. What's 2 times 2? Well, 2 times 2 is 4, so I'd have $4 saved. My expression would be 2, which is the $2 times the power of 2, or to the power of 2. Next, 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times another 2 is 8. So I'm going to have $8 here. And so my expression, since I have 3, 1, 2, and 3, would be 2 to the power of 3. The next one, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 2 times 2 is 4, times another 2 is 4, which 4 times 4 is 16. So I would have $16 saved. And my expression would be 2, which is my $2, to the power of 4. My next problem would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 5 times, because I have 5. My expression is going to be $2 to the power of 5, so because I have 5. And so my answer would be, this would be 4, this would be 4, and this would be times 2. 4 times 4 is 16, times 2 equals 32, so I would have $32. My next problem would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So my expression would be 2 to the power of 6. And I would have $32 times 2, which would be $64. So after 6 days, I would already have $64. I think I'm going to have a lot of money after the end of 14 days. My next one would be, and I'm going to do it in a different color, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my expression is going to be 2 to the 7. I can go ahead and continue doing my expressions. 2 to the 8, 2 to the 9, $2 to the power of 10, $2 to the power of 11, $2 to the power of 12, $2 to the power of 13, and $2 to the power of 14. I want you to go ahead and continue finishing this table, and then I'm going to check to make sure it's correct. Go ahead and pause your computer and go ahead and start solving them. All right, now we're going to go on to exponents. And here is our model. For a number that is formed by repeated multiplication of the same factor is called a power. You can use an exponent and a base to write a power. So here's our example. 7 to the power of 3. This is how we call it. 7 to the power of 3, of 4, of 8, of whatever it may be. This means 7 times 7 times 7. It means 7 times 7 times 3 times. And so we have our labels here. This is our base, and this is our power, or our exponent. Okay, and let's move on to some examples. So we have 6 to the power of 2. What does this mean? This means 6 to the power of 2. This means 6 times 6. 2 times. 1 time here, 2 times. 6 times 6 equals 36. Okay? It does not mean 6 times 2, which would equal 12. It does not mean that. The next one, 7 to the power of 3. What does this mean? It means 7 times 7 times 7. So it means 7 3 times. 7 times 7 is 49, times another 7 equals, and I have to come over here and solve it. 9 times 7 is 63, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. So it would be equals to 343. Doesn't equal 21. The next one, 8 to the power of 4, to the power of 4, to the power of 3, to the power of 2. So this means 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64, and this is 8 times 8 is 64. And then I bring down my multiplication time, so it means 64 times 64. And so 64 times 64, 4 times 4 is 16. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. I'm going to go ahead and start with the placeholder here. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 6 is 36, plus 2, 38. And so our answer would be 6, 9, 10, 4,096. Okay, how do we write our exponents? So our base is going to be 3 for this problem because we have 3. And then we're going to figure out what our exponent is because we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's 3 to the power of 4. What does this mean? This means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which 3 times 3 is 9. Bring down this. And this 3 times 3 is 9, which equals 81. Okay, our next one, it's a fraction. So it's 4/5 is our base. So we're going to put 4/5. And then when it's fractions, I put the parentheses around it. And 4/5 how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's 4/5 5 times. What does this mean? This means 4/5 times 4/5 times 4/5 times 4/5 times 4/5. And remember, when we're multiplying fractions, we're multiplying 4/5 times 4/5. We just multiply straight across on both. So it's 4 times 4 over 5 times 5. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. So we have 16 25ths. So this would be 16 over 25. And then we have another 4/5. This would also be 16 over 25. So we're going to multiply 16 over 25 times 16 over 25 and times 4/5. So we're going to multiply all of this answer times 4/5. And so we would get this really big answer. Next problem. Check for understanding. Here's what I want to do. I want to check for understanding. How can we convert these into an exponent? So I would have 4 to the power of 3. How do I convert these? I would have 1/8 to the power of 2. This one would be 3 to the power of 4. And this one would be, my base would be 5 to the power of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to the power of 6. My answer is not 30 for this one. I want you to solve and figure out what the answer is for 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, we have some more examples. So if we ever have an exponent of 0, 6 to the power of 0, it always will equal 1. 2 to the power of 0, the answer would be 1. 9 to the power of 0, the answer would be 1. 3 to the power of 0, the answer would be 1. So I just want to remind you, if it has a 0, it's to the power of 1. So now this problem here, 10 to the power of 4. Here's how I solve them. I always just break up 4. I put 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, 4 times. 10 times 10 is 100. And this is 10 times 10 here would be another 100. So it would be 100 times 100, which would equal 1 and 4 zeros. So 10,000. This example here is 4 to the power of 3. So what I would have, I would have 0.4 times 0.4 times 0.4. I'd have it 3 times. So 0.4 times 0.4, so I'd come over here and I'd multiply 0.4 times 0.4, 16, 1, 4 times 0 is 0, 1, move my decimal place 2 places. So this would equal 0.16, and then I would multiply that answer times 0.4, and then I would find my answer. Next one, 6 to the power of 4. This means 6 times 6 times 6 times 6. I know that 6 times 6 is 36, and I know that 6 times 6 here is 36, so it's 36 times 36, and you can go ahead and solve it on your own. This means 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3, and I want you to solve it and figure out the answer. Here's another example, 1/4 to the power of 0, so my answer would be 1. And then 7 to the power of 0, my answer would be 1. I want you to solve this one, 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 and this one. I want you to solve, I want you to set it up, and I'm going to do the first one for you. I want you to set it up, and then I want you to find the answer. So it'd be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 4 times, which is 9 times 9, which equals 81. And so this is what I want to see. I'm going to check all of these answers. When you're done, you can move on to collaborative practice. After the collaborative practice, I'm going to be checking all of these. I want you to move on to independent practice. And then we have some more independent practice. You have a certain point to get to today. And once you get to that point, you will have recess. Lunch recess. If you don't get to a certain point, and I'm not going to tell you what that certain point is. I already know what that certain point is for these problems. If you don't get to that point, you will stay in at lunch recess until you get to that point. So please work hard, focus, and pay attention.